everybody, Annalisa here with ABC for Dance with my assistant Fred. Today we're going to talk about the pelvis in Arabesque. This is lesson number 14 in your anatomy series. So Fred is giving you his posterior view so that you can see what's actually happening. While our hip socket or the acetabulum is to the side, there is still a lot of bone structure in the back. So Fred has actually an amazing arabesque to the back. Fred can go well over 90 degrees with absolutely no change in his torso. This doesn't happen for the rest of us. The reason Fred can do that is because of how the ball and socket are attached on a skeleton. In a real live body like yours and mine, as we start to bring our leg back, generally about here, there's going to be some need for the pelvis to shift forward. So in our last lesson, we talked about keeping our pelvis square. And arabesque is one of those places, and splits and grand jetés where one leg is going front, one leg is going back, are all places where that square pelvis is really going to be important. I'm going to do this from the side because it's the easiest way for you to see what's happening at my hips. You're going to take your feet parallel, and we're going to point one foot back. Remember, when I pointed my foot to the side, I had that little bit of a shift. I have to do the same thing in arabesque. I need to put all of my weight on my standing leg. Now, as I start to lift my leg up, I'm going to hit a point where no matter how much I try to stretch my leg back and away from me, I can't do it without changing my upper body. The key is to change both sides of my upper body together. And here's the difference. If I start to lift and I just let that one hip lift, I'm going to start going into a position that in a dance class we would most likely get corrected for. This is not a very square position. It's somewhere between an arabesque and a second position. Instead, I want to think my hips are going to stay square to the front. I'm going to stretch my foot back, and as I stretch my foot, I think of reaching my toe towards the back wall. And what that's going to do is help me keep my hips forward. But you're going to notice my body starts to come forward. So as my leg lifts, my body needs to incline forward. And that incline forward is what starts to give me the movement I need and the space that I need for my leg to lift. The same thing happens when I'm turned out. For my particular body, when I turn out, I have a little bit more height in my arabesque before I have to move my pelvis. Some people, depending on their hip socket, may find that it's just the opposite. Everybody's individual. So I'm going to tendu my foot to the back, again, trying to keep my hips coming forward. I'm still thinking of reaching my leg away from me. And for me, I know my tendency is to want my leg to come out to the side, so I think about bringing my heel a little bit more behind me. And that idea of crossing over and getting a diagonal line helps me stay a little bit more square. But it took me a long time to learn how to do that. If you have somebody that can video you, or you can set your phone or a tablet or something up so you can tape yourself, try that exercise on both sides. And then start seeing where does my body start to shift and when. And see if it feels the same as it looks. Because I know in class a lot of times for me, I think I'm doing everything just right, but the teacher still finds something that they need to fix. And I don't question it because I know just because I feel it doesn't mean it's the same as it looks. Laying down on your stomach is another good way to practice your arabesque. So you can start, I turn my head to one side, and I'm going to turn my head towards the opposite side of the leg I'm working. I'm going to keep my leg parallel, and again, I'm going to think first of reaching my foot away from me, and then start lifting it up. And I want to stop lifting when I start feeling my upper body tense up, or rolling, or my hip lifting, and then bring it down. And then turn your head to the other side and try the same thing. Reach your leg far away. Try to keep that hip towards the floor as you lengthen your leg away from you. And then bring it down. Turn your legs out, and you can try the same thing. Again, you lengthen your leg away from you. Once you lengthen it away, try to keep pressing that hip forward as you lift your leg and lower it down. And that will start training your body a little bit more for the series of muscles that have to be involved to get your legs to lift and to get yourself to square off. In Arabesque, don't be surprised if the muscles that you're feeling are on the opposite side of the body. So I'm going to go back to my chair, my trusty bar, and tendu my foot to the back. And as I start lifting, I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking about and what I'm feeling in my body. So first, I start lifting my leg away from me, reaching for that back wall. Then I start thinking about my opposite, my supporting hip, lifting up, like there's a pair of suspenders pulling that up tall. Then I start feeling both sides of my back engaged because I'm bringing this side forward and this side continues to lift up. What I don't want to feel is I don't want to feel a lot of pain, pressure, or tension right in my lower back, because that means that I am not really using a good dynamic movement or dynamic opposition, and instead I'm sitting into my lower back, which can cause a problem down the road. So I'm thinking, lift the front of my hip. It's literally like somebody grabbed the front of my pants and is lifting up this way to keep me from leaning forward. One of the things your teacher might say to get you to do that is engage your abdominals. It's not just about your abdominals, it's also about the muscles that are inside supporting the front of your hip flexors. Their job, especially your psoas, is to keep that upper body lifted. So I want to think up in the front, long and away from me in the back. And then if I keep lifting my leg, my body can go forward, but only because my leg goes up. So it becomes like a seesaw or a teeter-totter. As my leg goes up in the back, my body has to give in the front. I don't want to give, and by giving my body first, you would see this. I'm going to lower my body and lift my leg. So you want to see that tension and maintain that tension as you go into your arabesque. And that's the ways that we're going to keep our pelvis more aligned and square by keeping our body aligned. It also helped me to learn that the word arabesque means spiral. So it's not a straight front-back line. It's a lot of this happening. And that spiral starts, especially if I'm turned out. So if I'm turned out, I tendu back. I think of my heel coming forward as I reach my toe to the back. And then I think of this hip coming forward and this side coming up. So it's this complex, round kind of movement, as opposed to my leg goes back, my body goes front, which makes me just feel like I'm kind of splatting. So that's a little bit of some ways to play around with your pelvis and your hip alignment in your arabesque. Try it with a video camera or your phone so that you can see it, and then do it laying on the floor, parallel and turned out, so you can start to feel it and start feeling the muscles that have to engage and the difference between engaging to support you and clenching and bearing down, which makes movement hard.